When fall and winter weather rolls around, there is nothing better than a big old steaming bowl of chili. And that's what we're doing today, but we're doing turkey chili. So we are doing chili today, and it's very similar to my all beef Texas chili, but we're using turkey. And one of the things that's different about it is that turkey is a low fat meat, and so fat is where your flavor comes from in the beef chili. So we've got to do a couple other things to make that flavor come out. And the one thing that we got to do about that, is to really brown our turkey nicely in some oil. So we're going to heat up some oil, and I'm using grapeseed oil. I'm not using olive oil. I'm using grapeseed oil, which is a high smoke point oil. We want that oil to get nice and hot, and it'll take quite a bit of oil because turkey basically has zero fat. Now, we live in France, and you cannot buy turkey already ground here in France, or at least I've never seen it. So I took the liberty of grinding my own turkey. You can buy turkey morsels, they call them. And so I've ground my own turkey, and I've done a fairly coarse grind on this turkey meat. If you can if you can see that. So that's our turkey meat. So as I was saying, when you are doing an all beef chili, you know, the beef has a lot of fat in it generally, and that's where a lot of the flavor comes from. But again, we're using ground turkey today, and this is a coarse grind that I've ground myself. And what we're gonna do to make the flavor come out of this chili is, first of all, like I said earlier, I am using a grapeseed oil, not an olive oil. You want an oil that's a high smoke point oil, like a grapeseed oil, some kind of ground nut oil, a walnut oil, or even an avocado oil. And I'm heating this oil to actually smoking. And what we're gonna do is start browning our meat in batches, because we don't want to crowd the pan. And that is the sound you want. So we'll stop right there with our meat, and we're just gonna let that cook. We wanna let that get nice and brown. So the rest of our ingredients are, we've got one onion, and I've got about 2.5 to 3 pounds of turkey there. So we've got one onion, we've got a half each of yellow bell pepper, green bell pepper, and I'm gonna do a half of this red bell pepper. And then we've got a big old 28-ounce can of tomatoes, of crushed tomatoes that we'll add to our chili. So I'm just gonna put these over here. And then our seasonings is gonna be the other part of our flavor. We've got some chili powder, we've got some ground cumin, we've got smoked paprika, we've got turmeric, and we've got oregano. To me, these are the 5 most important ingredients in chili. Whether you're making turkey chili or beef chili, these are these are what gives you the flavor profile that you want when you're making chili. So we'll set those aside, and let's give our turkey a stir. And now, I've got this on high heat, and I really want this turkey to get nice and brown and actually start sticking to the bottom of the pan. That's called souks, and that is where the flavor is gonna come from. You know, I said, about the flavor being from the fat in the beef. Well, the turkey, when it sticks to the bottom of the pan, and then we're gonna deglaze that pan, and I didn't mention it yet, but we've got some beer here. And it doesn't matter, I've got an amber beer here. You could use a light beer if you want, or a lager, but this is going to help to deepen the flavor of our turkey. So we're just gonna set that aside. And in the meantime, let's just prepare our other ingredients, because once we brown our turkey, the next thing we're gonna do is take the turkey meat out, and then we're gonna start adding our vegetables. Let's give our turkey another quick stir. And again, we want this turkey to be nice and brown. We don't want it to be kind of brown. We want it to be dark brown, nice and brown. So we're going to let it cook for a little bit and get it nice and brown. So let's prepare our onion first. So we're doing just a nice, probably a 1/4 inch dice on our onions. So I've just cut them 1/4 inch slices down, and now I'm just going to do 1/4 inch chunks just like that. And every once in a while just give your turkey meat a stir. And rather than pouring this turkey meat from the pot to the holding pan, I'm going to use a slotted spoon to remove that. And now you can see the water that came out of our turkey. I'm just going to discard that water because it's just going to steam our meat and it's going to keep things from browning. I'm actually going to let this dry out a little bit over the heat, and then I'm going to add some more oil to the pan. So we'll add a little bit more oil, and we'll let that oil get hot, and we'll go in with our second batch. In the meantime, we'll just continue with our vegetables. And as I said, I'm doing fairly large pieces of these vegetables. And we're going to keep our onions separate from the other vegetables because we're going to put our onions in first, and we're going to sweat them or cook them slowly to release some of the moisture and to get them nice and soft and translucent. And then we'll add the other vegetables. You can hear our oil spitting and sputtering, so now let's go ahead and add the rest of some more of our turkey. When you're browning meat, the sound you want is the sizzling sound when you put it in the pan. That way you know it's actually cooking and browning and it's not steaming. All of our meat has been browned, but one of the tricks that I like to use, especially with turkey, is that once we've gone through all of the batches, I'm just going to put everything back in the pot. And as you can see, in my bowl, there's quite a bit of liquid. And so we don't want that liquid because that liquid is what keeps everything from browning. So we are just going to put this back in and let it brown a little bit more. And this is really a secret to some flavor, because now you can see the bits in there that are really getting brown? That's what we want. And we want some of that even sticking to the bottom of the pot, because that is flavor. And I know a lot of times when you have something like a turkey chili, people complain because it doesn't have the depth of flavor that a beef chili does. That's one of the things that will give it that depth of flavor. So we'll just let that brown for a little bit. And while that's browning, let's finish our vegetables. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a red chili pepper. You could do a jalapeno pepper here. You could do this is a mild red chili. It's not that hot, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm leaving the seeds in. And that's probably enough of that. And then the last thing is our garlic. I've got a fairly large clove of garlic here that we will just mince. And then once we add our garlic, let's give our chili another stir. That's the browning that we want. And the one thing I haven't mentioned yet is our tomato paste. I've got some tomato concentrate here. And this is the good stuff. This is not the stuff in the can. This is the stuff that's very strong. And so we're going to use probably about 2 tablespoons of this before we deglaze our pan. So those are our ingredients. Our chilies, our turkey's brown enough. And we are now going to just take that out and we'll put it in our pan. We're just going to reserve it. Now you can kind of see, once you see the bottom of this pan, look at that. You see all that stuff that's stuck to the bottom? That is flavor. So what I'm going to do now is we're not going to deglaze our pan yet. We're now going to add our vegetables and sweat them and let them get involved in all that flavor as well. So let's just add our onions. And as always, when we sweat something, that is, cook it till it's soft and translucent, we're going to add a little bit of salt because it helps to bring that moisture out. So we're just going to cook those around, and we don't really mind if these brown a little bit because after all we are making chili. So we'll let those cook for about 5 minutes or so, or 2 or 3 minutes. And then we're going to add our bell peppers, our green, yellow, and red bell peppers, as well as our garlic. Matter of fact, let's just mince our garlic into the same bowl. Make sure our onions are getting nice and soft here, and they are. All right, so now let's go ahead and add the rest of our vegetables. Let's just get everybody stirred in. And already the moisture from the onions and the peppers is starting to loosen up everything on the bottom. So we'll let those cook for 3 or 4 minutes, get those peppers nice and soft, and we'll move to our next step. Okay, our vegetables have cooked for about 5 minutes. They're getting nice and soft. And now I'm just going to go ahead and add our peppers, our hot peppers, to that. We didn't put those in with the rest of our vegetables. And now we're just going to add our meat back in. And the nice thing about this is that, you know, we're not adding moisture back, we're not adding water back into our mix, since we got rid of all of that liquid out of the meat. All right, now what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and season it. I like to go ahead and kind of get the seasoning going before we move to the next step. So let's go ahead and add our cumin. And honestly, I'm eyeballing this, but for the amount that we're doing today, I'm probably going to add start with about 2 tablespoons of cumin. I'm going to do a couple of tablespoons of smoked paprika. This is a hot chili powder, so I'm only going to do 1 tablespoon of this chili powder. And our turmeric, same thing, probably a tablespoon of turmeric. And then our oregano, probably about a tablespoon of oregano. And if you've got Mexican oregano, that's even better. It's just a wonderful, wonderful flavor. And now let's do an initial salt and pepper. Of course, we want a good amount of fresh black pepper. And if you're not using fresh ground black pepper, you should give it a try sometime, because it really makes a difference in your flavor. And now we'll add a little bit of salt, and I always go kind of light with the salt at first, just because you can always add salt later. You can always add a little bit more salt later. And again, we're still on high heat here. And now let's add our tomato paste. 1, 2. 2 nice tablespoons full of tomato paste. We just want to stir that in, get everything nice and coated. And tomato paste is kind of like flour. You want to cook it for a little bit, just to kind of cook the raw flavor out of it. Look at that color. All right, now we're going to deglaze our pan. And like I said, I'm using an amber beer, but you could use a lager beer if you want. It doesn't really matter that much. Use the entire bottle. And we're just going to we're going to stir it around. We're going to let this beer deglaze our pan. And deglazing our pan just means it's going to loosen all those bits on the bottom of the pan, all that sooks, what I was talking about earlier, and that is where that flavor is. And boy, look at, now you can see the bottom of the pan. It's just about clean. It's all coming up. And our beer is pretty much evaporated. I actually like to kind of give it a little taste at this point before we move on and add the rest of our tomatoes, just to kind of get an idea of where our seasoning level is. It's very good. I'm thinking that we need a little bit more smoked paprika. I think our cumin level is good, and our chili powder level is good as well. And again, we can always adjust this a little bit later as we go on. But our next step at this point is going to be to add our tomatoes, our crushed tomatoes. And we'll just rinse out our jar and our bowl with some water, and we'll add that to the mix. Probably equal to the amount of tomatoes that we put in. And if we need, of course, to adjust this and add more water, we can. And I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more water now because I can see that it's going to be, once it starts to cook down, that water is going to dry out a little bit. So that is it. That is it for our mix. And we now just need to let this, we're just going to bring this up to a boil, and then we will put our top on partially and let it simmer for a good 45 minutes to an hour, something like that. And we'll be good to go. Okay, we have come to the boil here, and wow, look at that. Beautiful color, nice consistency. So now that we're boiling, we are going to, after I'll take one last little taste here. You can really tell at this point what your flavor profile is going to be, and that is fantastic. So at this point, we're going to turn our heat down just a little bit. I'm going to partially cover this and let this just cook for about 45 minutes or so. All right, it has been about 45 minutes. Our chili has been cooking away here. I had the lid ajar for a little bit, just like that. But then it looked like it was getting a little bit dry, so I put the lid back on. And if it does dry out too much, you can always add a little bit of water to it. You can add some hot water to it. And so I added a little bit of water and put the lid back on and let it continue to cook. But let's just see what our texture looks like. Oh, look at that. That is what we're looking for. Everything is homogenized. It's all come together. Wow. Okay. Looks fantastic. Let's just give it a final check. It's wonderful. For my taste, it needs a little bit of salt. Like I said, we didn't add as much salt as we knew we'd probably need in the end. So I'm going to adjust it with a little bit of salt. And I didn't mention this, but sometimes people like to add a little bit of brown sugar or molasses, something like that. You could certainly do that. It really adds another dimension of flavor. We didn't put it in this one, but you could certainly do that to your chili if you'd like. And but yes, we will just go ahead and add a little bit of salt to this one. And since we're pretty much finished cooking it, I'm just going to add some fine sea salt to it. I'm not going to add the coarse sea salt because we're not going to really cook it anymore. We just want to finish our seasoning. And I think we are good to go. Let's turn our heat off. Honestly, I think I'm gonna add a little bit more black pepper just because I love having a little bit of black pepper, fresh black pepper on my chili. And we are good to go. All right, let's serve it up and give it a taste. Well, I cannot wait to taste this chili. So the only thing we're missing is some wonderful cornbread, which I will do my skillet cornbread, and I'll do a video on that sometime soon, and we'll put that up. But let's just dig in. The beautiful consistency of this is it's mouth-watering just to look at it and to smell it with that. You know, we've used some mimolette cheese here, but you know, you could use some dark cheddar, and it's just not chili to me if you don't finish it with some chili and some red onion and a little bit of cilantro or coriander leaf. So let's just dig right in. Everything about that is absolutely wonderful. You can taste the depth of flavor of the meat, the tomatoes in there, and that sauce. Man, with the spices that mix together to make that wonderful sauce. It's just fantastic. The tomatoes, how they've broken down and added to the consistency of it. So I hope you'll make it. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If so, hit the like button down below and be sure and subscribe to our channel. It's absolutely free. And when you subscribe, ring that bell so you never miss a video. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.